All right. We are back for another show, and Dan, electrifying main event. You know what I mean? A
No
lot of
doubt.
questions, a lot of questions answered. You know what I mean? Like a
Yep.
lot of action, man. I love the fight. But before we get into the fight, let's talk about your adventure this week out into Australia.
Yeah. Like I was saying, I said we'll save it for the show, and I think it's more of an event more than anything. I just come on the show as opposed to talking to a therapist. But now I went over to flew over to Brisbane, flew over to Australia with one of my fighters from the Combat Academy. There was another Kiwi on the card, so um, Matt Vale was fighting, and Luke Jamo, UFC fighter, was cornering him as well. And it just started. It got off. Let's just say it got off to a bad note from the start. Like we get to the airport. We're like checked our bags, and then something. I read a message from Damian Brown, who's also a UFC veteran and putting on his first show, and this is his first promotion, Beatdown Promotions. And I see a message from him going, "Do you know anyone that will fight Matt Vale?" And I was like, "That's not a good sign." Next thing, like Matt Vale comes around the corner and he's like, "Oh, hey, bro, how's it going?" And I was just like, well, I just, didn't have the heart to tell him. Damien saying, "I'm still, he's saying, don't tell him. I still like looking for an opponent for him, so don't tell him." I said, "Mate, there's no way in hell I'm telling him." I said, "That's your job." But I said, I'm sure as shit not telling him. Um, anyway, so they weren't able to match him. His opponent, Frinku, who's another absolute veteran, was having like heart problems or something like that, so was unable to fight because his doctor actually pulled him out of the fight. Anyway, I get my boy um, to fight day, and we're half an hour from walking over to the venue, and I was thinking, like, good to go, half an hour, we just start packing our stuff, like getting ready to leave, and I start getting a phone call from the promoter. And if you ever get a phone call from the promoter half an hour before his show, that is not good news. So I answered the phone call, get fucked. That was how I answered, that's how I answered the call. But it was bang on the money. He's saying, like, your opponent just got in touch. Your boy's opponent just got in touch. He's been taken to hospital with kidney failure. So he's obviously gone away, like cut too much weight. This was like his first time coming down this low, and yeah, he missed weight on the day, and he did look pretty terrible. But yeah, obviously, I hope he's going to be all right after that. And things like that. But it's just drives me up the wall. Half the bloody card this way. I was going to change the name of it to Eat Down Promotions. I was like, Geordie Sullivan, some of these boys don't know your number, brother. Some of these boys maybe got to cut your costs or something, because some of these boys have got absolutely. It's hard to tell what it is, like exactly that's doing with the like a weight miss. Really, it's to me, it can like only like it's something that you need to set an example with. It's something that needs to be respected. Um, like someone missing weight needs to be respected over everything else. You can do the financial penalties. You can take someone's whole purse. You can do all of this stuff, but it's still I don't think as effective as just good old fashioned respect. Like that's what makes people step on the scales. For mine, like if you step on the scale and you miss weight, there's no, like, you can't celebrate that victory. Like, you got the victory. You obviously beat the guy, but you cheated. Technically, you cheated to get the win. You know what I mean? Like you broke the rules, right? And so I feel like you get the win, but you don't get to celebrate that win, and you still have to like apologize to your promoter. Like if you step on the scale overweight, it's saying one of like a few things. Either like um I don't have any respect for my opponent, you know, that's like one of the main things. Like you step on a scale overweight, you're just saying, "Oh, I don't care about this guy. I don't care about this guy showing up and training and him making weight and stuff like that." It's one of the things you're saying that like definitely pisses me off. Another thing you're saying is I quit, right? Like you're going into the fight saying I've already quit the day before, like, or you're cheating. Those are the three things that you're doing by missing weight. You're either cheating, you're either saying fuck my opponent, I have no respect for him, and that's something I take very seriously, right? Like my boy's opponent misses weight and steps on the scale. I take that as him saying, "Fuck my time. I don't care about." He doesn't care about my time. He doesn't care about my boy's effort to get on the scales. He doesn't care about the months of training that my boy put into the camp. He doesn't give a fuck about me taking time away from my family to come over for this fight so he can showcase his skills. You know what I mean? Like it's just that's the only thing I feel like is going to solve it. Like some older heads in the game just saying like this something. I don't think this has happened in New Zealand. I'm gonna poke this straight at these Australians, mate. They just they got. You know what I'm saying? I'm putting my finger dead square in the eyes of these Australians, mate. I say if half the card buddy missed on a show in New Zealand, I'd say there'd be some fights going on in the car park. I'll tell you that much.
Wow, an eventful, couple of days out there in Brisbane, right? You're out in Brisbane.
Great show.
Yeah,
the show was incredible, actually. Like Damien for his show, like he actually went like above and beyond. It was like an incredible show that he put together. You can see the stream, like he put the stream up for free, and he had some pretty incredible fights. He had some of the best kickboxers in Australia or in the world, really. Like Elliot Compton was the main event. He's multiple world champion, world Muay Thai champion. He's been fighting in one series at in kickboxing and Muay Thai against some of the best guys there. He fought Nicky Holskin, Cosmo Alexander, and this was his MMA debut. Fought a real tough Japanese kid coming in with that 11-8 record. So that's like a lot of fights for your debut MMA. And then Junior Tuffa as well, like his much anticipated MMA debut. Like Junior Tuffa was booked for Contender Series with no MMA fights. Like he had absolutely no MMA experience, just coming from his kickboxing background, fighting at heavyweight and Glory and stuff like that. And he was going to get a shot on the Contender Series with no fights. So now with a fight under his belt, I'm sure he's going to get that same kind of respect. But he blew his boys. He rung his boys' bell pretty quick. Like that was a very, very, very impressive performance. But stacked card, top to bottom, all the boys fought well. It was one of the nicest venues I've ever been in for a local show. And the stream is free on YouTube. So if you want to watch the event, see those boys' fights, it's just up on YouTube, Beatdown Promotions.
Yeah, that's great, man. It's great to see Damien giving back. He gets to the highest level, opens up his own establishment, gives back. It's an ecosystem, and you're just adding to the ecosystem, which is great.
100%, man. 100%. Like the things that he's doing, like just to keep the sport growing, is train his fighters, run his gym, run his promotion, and stuff like that. It's like that's like necessary for the sport to continue to evolve. I get people ask me like, "Oh, when are you gonna start promoting or put on a show?" I'm thinking, mate, that it looks terrible. It looks like running a show looks like the worst idea anyone could ever have. Like controlling like how many, like 20 fighters, like 24 fighters is like herding cats. Like they're all going anywhere, like so temperamental. Like because I've obviously fought on a lot of shows. Like I have heard some thingers of excuses, right? Like fall over, slipped in the shower on fight day. That's one. You might think that slipped in the shower on fight day and got injured and can't fight. That's like a once in a lifetime thing you're going to hear. 3 times. Slipped in the shower has happened. These guys need new bath mats. or something like that, because slipping in the shower. But we were like running through. I was like standing there with Luke Pizzuti, who used to run CFC, which was like one of the biggest events in Australia when I was coming up, and he's still like running his gym, Lions Den, there in Sydney. And we were like talking about it, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, I had one. The guy was punching a wall out back to warm up. Like he was coming out for his fight for CFC, and he was just punching the wall and broke his hand and had to pull out of the fight, punching the wall." I remember Jamie Tahuna, actually UFC Auckland, when he fought Nate Marquardt, when I made my debut, warming up on the pads. Someone was telling me this, warming up on the pads, like kicked under the pad, kicked like an elbow, broke his toe warming up. So he broke his foot warming up for the fight, still went out and fought. Like at least he wasn't punched a wall bloke who cracked the wall a bit funny and then pulled the pin on the whole fight. Like at least Ernest still had the balls to go out there and put on a show for everyone. You know what I'm saying? But promoting sounds terrible. It sounds terrible. It's the last thing I will ever check off my ecosystem bucket list. Let's just say that.
Well, you have the bucket list promotion that you do, which is a little bit more isolated, right?
Yeah. Oh, I gave that to Aaron Toe. So Aaron Toe stopped his job and wanted to train full time. So I gave him the bucket list to run so that he could put that money away, save that money so he could train. Then he just ran the bucket list and spent all the money in a week. So I don't think I was clear enough with the concept. You know what I mean? Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to starve. You
teach him to starve.
That boy's gonna be hungry for a while. Let me just tell you that, brother. He was living good there. He was living good there for a couple of weeks.
He was balling. He was coming to the gym looking fresh, looking shiny.
He was living better than me. Let's just say that.
Oh shit, that's crazy. Yeah, well, but I see you. You know, what I mean, you try to support in your way. Like you said, you don't want to run a promotion, but if you want to run a promotion, then Dan will support you and see what happens. But yeah, it's great to see. There's going to be more shows. I think more traveling back and forth, which is good for the fighters. And man, Matt Vail, can we get Matt Vail to fight for real? Like I've been talking about Matt Vail for the last I don't even know how many years. This dude can scrap. Like give him a chance.
Yeah, that's why no one wants to fight him. That's the downside of being really, really good. Yeah. Is that no one wants to get in there and actually have a fight with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, UFC, man, let's get him a one-off fight on one of the Road to UFC. Road to UFC, we just got news that the second one's going to be in Abu Dhabi on October 23rd. And, they have one-off fights, kind of like Contender Series fights. Why can't we get a bunch of Australians and New Zealand people on it? Let's get it. Let's 100%. Get it on, man.
100%. Now, yeah, I would say, especially since the like COVID and stuff has just stopped these boys' like ability to actually get out there and fight. Like taken 2 years. They've taken 2 years, like off a lot of local guys' careers, right? They've had to just sit on their hand for 2-3 years, which is actually like that's ridiculous. I've seen a lot of guys quit. You know what I mean? I've seen a lot of fighters put fighting down and pick something else up, like start their own business, put more energy into their work and their family and stuff like that. So yeah, there needs to be some light at the end of the tunnel for these other guys. Like even though I went through like tough times, I was still able to actually get out there and make a lot of money during that kind of stuff, which I'm very grateful.
Yeah, man, you took the carrot and ran with it when nobody wanted to take the carrot and run with it. So, opportune times, man, you get opportunities. So, you know what I mean? You did it.
Yeah.
Hey, not many guys. You're living good. You're living good. All right, let's talk about this fight, man. Main event, man, Fiziev, RDA. RDA comes out, tries to mix in the takedowns. Fiziev is doing really well with defense. I think he took him down once. He got back up. Man, the finish, right? The left hand. Did you see the left hand coming? Like eventually, like that left hand is gonna hurt him, or was it something that just came out of nowhere in your eyes?
Yeah, like that's a risky thing. I think he shifted like stance forward twice, right? Like he jumped kind of through the kick, like shifted into a different stance and then shifted again with the other punch. So like just shifting once is like kind of a risk. Shifting twice is like a big risk, but it's a sport of like risk versus reward. I think Fiziev knew how the fight was. He knew where the fight was going. He knew it could have gone either way at that point. I think it was like could have been 2-2. Like who knew? I didn't see the judges' scorecards yet. I kind of had it close. I had it coming down to that last round, and just the momentum of it, of the round 3 and round 4, was definitely leaning towards RDA, right? Like from my money, like Fiziev needed to do something to just shift the tempo of the fight and to kind of change the course of the fight, change the momentum, swinging that way. And you could tell that when he came out in the 5th round. He kind of knew that he bit down and he went forward and took a big risk, and with big risks come big rewards. And he was able to stop a guy who's, in my eyes, like one of the best guys in the division. One of the hands down, one of the hardest fights, and one of the toughest guys to beat. And he was able to knock him out and look good in the 5th round.
Yeah, coming into the fight, if you're RDA, I would think like the game plan would be to weather the storm early and then drain the battery and, maybe go win the last 3 rounds or even get a late finish, right? And it looked like he was going towards that way, like exactly like that. Weather the storm early the first couple rounds, and in the 3rd and 4th, he's just picking up the pace and getting better. And you kind of saw Fiziev a little bit, the wrestling kind of got to him, right, until the finish happened. But RDA looked good. I thought he looked really good. It's just Fiziev.
I thought he did too.
Fiziev was just that power, man. He has crazy power in his hands.
I was like leading into that 5th round, like it was so close, right? Like I kind of had it coming into the 5th, could have gone either way. Like if that would have been like another round, like round 2 or round 1, where it was just like a dead even round, in my eyes, like it was like RDA's doing a good job of closing them down. I keep trying to call them both Rafa, and I'm like, no one's gonna know who I'm talking about. Like RDA was doing a good job of kind of shutting him down and getting that clinch against the cage, but then I feel like Fiziev was maybe like 1 or 2 strikes or a few strikes ahead once they're out in the open. So it's a very difficult fight to score at that point. And so I thought we were leading towards what we saw with like Arman and Gamrot, where like one guy wins, but there's actually no like real answer as to who was better. Like I thought we were gonna go that way. Like if it would have been another round, like round 1 or round 2, I feel like we'd be in that position where there's guys in the top 10. We don't actually know who's better. Like they got wins over each other, but obviously with a finish like that seals the deal, and that lets everyone know who's the guy that moves forward and who's the guy that gets the bigger shot. So I'm glad that there was that finish for Fiziev, just for clarity, for like clarity's sake in the division, is we need to see just clear winners at this level of the sport.
Yeah, definitely. I think he proved a couple things. He proved that he does have cardio better than most people thought he did. His defensive wrestling is phenomenal. I think he's second in defensive takedowns, so that his defense is good.
Yeah.
And also he carries that power into the 5th round, even though he's tired. You know what I mean? Like that's something that is very dangerous for a lot of guys, right? Especially with the level of striking that.
Oh
that
man,
Rafa
anyone says they're not tired in the 5th round is lying to you. If you're not tired after 20 minutes of fighting, brother, something's going terribly wrong.
Even Clay Guida, he seems like he's never tired.
He comes out tired. He's just so used to it. He's so used to it. That's his operating mode.
Yeah, and yeah, it was I still think Rafa he or RDA he proved that he's still one of the elite lightweights in the division. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. Even though he got knocked out in the 5th round, but up to that point, he looked really good. He looked like one of the best guys in the world. It's not like we saw him take a step backwards. He's actually he might be getting better, to be honest with you, because he's keeping up with the next wave of contenders, right? Am I wrong by saying that?
Hold on, you cut out for a second, mate.
Oh, I
Lost
did?
you.
Or how long? For a second? Like,
Probably
I was
about
just
20 seconds. Let's say you started the conversation and then you ended it with, what do you think? And I was gonna wing it. I was gonna be like, yo, fuck it, I'm just gonna ignore it and then pretend like I knew and be like, yeah,
shit.
exactly what you said. Then I was like, nah, I might be agreeing with something fucked up. Give me
Yeah,
the
well, what I said was that RDA, even though he got knocked out in the 5th round, he looked really good and competitive up to that point. And I still think that, he can compete with any of the other guys in the division. And also, he proved to me that he's still getting better because Fiziev is the next wave of lightweight contenders, and he's still competing with them. And when was Rafael the champion? What, like 5, 6, 7 years ago? So it shows you that he's still like getting better in his skill set. Improving.
Absolutely, everyone like RDA is just he's great. He might not be like the loudest mouth or anything like that, but he's definitely one of the best in the division and one of the hardest to beat. Like he's definitely no easy beat. Incredibly well-rounded. Jiu-jitsu, like his takedowns are crazy. His striking's actually very, very sharp, very, very defensive, very hard to hit. So, nah, for sure. I feel like he's just in a weird place now. Like he's gonna need a fight that's gonna get him back into the mix, like quick. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna because he is 37, 38. Like if he's gonna make his move, he's got to make it. He's got to make it now. He's got to make it yesterday. So whether he comes back and goes against, I feel like even beating, he's fought Tony before, or they were.
Yeah, he fought Tony.
Yeah. Well, it's like hard. He's like fought everyone. Like answered a lot of questions. Like he obviously needs a fight to just put him straight back into the mix.
Yeah, there's, he hasn't fought Gaethje, Poirier, Makachev. He hasn't fought Dariush.
I'd say just all of those guys would be hesitant to fight him. Like I feel like everyone knows how good RDA is, and all of those names that you listed like don't have anything to gain from beating RDA. Those are all guys that know the risk of fighting RDA. They know how good he is, and they just won't see much reward in it. You know what I mean? He just got finished by like the next generation, by like that next tier of fighter down than the guys that you just named. So it's a tough spot for him, but no one can tell him what to do except him,
Yeah, for sure. I just think that they're going to give him somebody that's very similar to Fiziev next. I don't think they're going to give him, like you said, there's not going to be many guys lining up to fight him. So you have to pick somebody that's hungry, that will take that gamble. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, all I'm saying is that he's not in a place to like go back and rebuild. You know what I mean? Like he's not in a place where he can like go a bit further down the line and stack some wins back up and then fight Gamra or Arman or like one of these young hungry guys just coming into the top 15. Like he's gonna have to go against one of them straight away, because obviously for him it's not about fighting for money. I'm sure that guy's got millions and millions of dollars in the bank. For him it's about being world champion. He wants to be world champion again and get that title back and compete with the best in the world. So yeah, like I'm sure his next fight, his comeback fight, is gonna be straight back into the fire, which is it's a difficult task.
It is definitely a difficult task. Fiziev, he goes out there and Fiziev, I'm gonna call him Fiziev. You could call him Fiziev. It's up to you. But Fiziev,
you know him, shouldn't you?
Yeah, I do know him.
Fiziev.
And, yeah, I'll probably see him when he gets back. You know what I mean? But like, I asked him about it, and he said, "Yeah, sure." But he's a pretty happy-go-lucky guy, where it's like whatever. You know, you probably
I
no
love
one's
his,
probably
I
saying
love
it
his,
right.
I love his call outs, right? Like never calls anyone out you'd expect him to call out. He's called out Hezbollah, Rafael Nadal. Like,
But
I think
I
it's
think
funny.
he's
I think it's funny. Yeah,
yeah,
he's a
it's
bit of
good
a. He's
because
just trolling, you know.
exactly, and he's just and he's poking at just like names that are I guess popular in the like common household, like let's
Yeah.
say like a Rafael Nadal or a Vince Vaughn or whatever. But yeah, he makes fun. You know what I mean? What is it? What did he say? Yeah, he usually calls somebody out in the. Where are we?
Nah,
There you
just
are.
zigged when I should have zagged. That's all.
Yeah, so he takes like the opportunity on the camera to call out some like random popular name or popular
Well, it's
figure,
like
and then goes
someone.
to the
It's like
back.
someone mainstream, right?
Yeah,
Like he just gets that mainstream like clickbait audio. Like if that person responds, well then I think Hezbollah respond. Like I think
yeah,
it does gain a lot of traction. It's a good way to look at it. It's a good way. Yeah. He'll
yeah.
go out back and then once it's the like the people in the media that know what's up and know the landscape of the division that
Mm.
ask him like a serious question, then I'm sure we're gonna get a pretty serious answer after that. But yeah, for me, I'd like to see him fight Gamma. I think that's a top five for mine.
All right. So after the fight, I saw a clip from his interviews backstage, and he said that of course, obvious Gamrot would be a great fight, but he said like, Gamrot, Armin, we're all kind of like part of the same wave. So why don't we fight the guys in the top 5 or the guys in the top 10? And and we need fresh blood. That's what he was saying. And then I think he said Justin Gaethje. He wants to fight Justin Gaethje. He wants that opportunity, and Gamrot could fight somebody else. Of course, you're gonna reach that far, right? That's the obvious thing. You're not gonna call out Gamrot, but
Yeah,
you're gonna
because
go for
that
Justin Gaethje.
he could probably get that fight. Like, why not? Why not
Yeah,
shoot a bit further than you're targeting? Right.
yeah,
That definitely makes like a lot of sense. Like, I would be, of course, if I was in the same spot, I'd be trying to get one of the stars, one of the bigger names in the division, one of the guys that's actually going to chuck you in the mix, or one of the guys that's actually going to get a title shot out of it.
and it's a good stylistic matchup for Fiziev. You know, what I mean, his style of we know Justin Gaethje is a wrestler, but he doesn't wrestle very often in his fights.
Mm.
So Fiziev would be really good. In another main event. Why not? You know what I mean? Why not? I'm surprised he didn't say anything about Connor.
Been there,
What
you know what I mean?
did
Been there.
he did it? He
It's
shut it
not.
down. What about Connor saying that he could turn a roundhouse kick into an axe kick in the middle of the kick? He could turn it into an axe kick when when could you
It's not
help me with
how
that?
it's not how you get the Conor fight. Let's just say that. Let's just say that. Like get on a microphone saying mean things to him and insulting him is like not how you get the
Yeah.
McGregor fight. I think I know how to get it, so I'm not gonna tell these other guys what they should be doing.
Yeah.
I'm just keep my lips zipped. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know you guys. I know all you guys, you boys from City Kickboxing are tacticians and everything that you guys do, even the
There's
post fight.
ways, you know.
Yeah,
They're doing it
of course.
wrong. You just
There's a formula.
let them. You just let them do it wrong, right?
Just let them do it wrong and just watch them. Just be like, come on, guys. Yeah, so Fiziev, how do you think that fight plays out? You know what I mean? Right now, if they fought next week, what do you think happens?
Between Gaethje and Fiziev.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good question. Gaethje's got very good footwork, very good coaching. Yeah, that's a true just striking battle, right? Like no one is actually like those are two of the best defensive wrestlers in the division. I don't see either of them implementing like a wrestling style attack. Obviously, Gaethje with the boxing and with the strikes and then Fiziev's kicks. Like it'd be very difficult for Gagey to get his hands going with those kicks going. I'd say Gagey's footwork is very good. So is Fiziev's. Like Fiziev has a very good understanding of footwork. That's a tough battle. I'd say I would lean. I'd say if I had to right now, gun to my head, I'd be putting money on Fiziev for that fight.
Yeah, it's a gunslinger battle, man. I would love to see that. Shit, that's one of the matchups they should make. I'll be very surprised if they put Fiziev against like another guy that's coming up in the division. That just doesn't make sense. Why would you go from RDA, a former champ, to another, prospect or up and comer in the division, new contender?
Yeah, but lightweight is not like any other division. Like lightweight
you're right.
it's like a stupid mix. Any other division, you main event a fight night, your next fight is for the title. Like you look at any other division, like if there's two welterweights, like maybe not welterweight, like two bantamweights main eventing a fight night. Whoever wins that, especially in a fashion like that, with a knockout or a finish or a fight of the night, will get a title shot after that.
Mm-hmm.
Lightweight, you win a main event with a knockout, you don't get anything. Like you get another tough fight. Like you're shit out of luck. You shouldn't have been born 70 kilos.
Yeah, should have been 470 kilos. Yeah, well, whatever happens, he's the future of the division. RDA is still really, really fucking good. Like, don't sleep on RDA. And I'm pretty sure if you watch the fight, you should know that. Now the co-main event, this guy Caio Borraio, he did exactly what I thought he was gonna do in the fight, is just take the dude down and just kind of smush him a little bit. And he did it for most of the fight and cruised to a decent win, because Petrosian is a monster. When they were standing, he looked crisp, right? He looked sharp.
One question I do have before we move on to that fight is, I'm asking you because you're friends with Fiziev. This is like the first time I've seen him, or like maybe it's like the first time in a long time that he's had his flag showed up. Like he fights out of Azerbaijan, right?
Yeah,
and carries that flag. Like usually he's just got the plain generic like symbol of nothing, and they don't say what country he's from. So is that like political turmoil in their own country, or why hasn't he been able to have his flag represented on the screen or anything like that?
Well, I guess representing the country. Like he wasn't representing any country at that time, so like he didn't have a flag. I guess you have that option. When did we talk about this last week about like you could choose what country to represent, any country?
So he just wasn't choosing a country.
I guess so. He wasn't choosing a country, and then Azerbaijan is his home country now. Like his father's Azerbaijani. I hope I'm saying that right. So he kind of
doesn't sound right. Yeah, you ask him. You're friends with him. You ask
I will.
him.
When he gets back, I'll see what's up with him. But
Brazilian guy, ragdolled Petrosian.
Yeah. Okay, there's something I wanted to ask you that transpired in this fight, which is the Brazilian, he's laying on his butt, on his back, and Petrosian's just kicking him to the legs. Would you consider that significant strikes?
Nah, doesn't really hurt. There's too much give. There's too much give. Like if my legs are like, I'm on my back and my legs are in the air, it's not the same as my legs. If my legs are on the ground and they're on solid ground and you kick them, there's like no give in that, right? So all that force is transferred into the legs because you're grounded. If I'm on my back and my legs are flailing around in the air and you're kicking them, like they like swing around and you might get a few like red marks on them or something like that, but they're not truly like damaging kicks. It's not the same kind of damage. So I'd say it's like counted in the UFC thing as a significant strike, but to me it's not. Like when have you ever seen anyone been finished with like kicks to the leg while they're grounded? You know what I mean? Like that's probably never happened.
Remember, I think it
Unless
was
the
Cowboy.
guy had like had his leg already damaged
Yeah.
standing up and then fallen and had it finished. Like that's a different story.
I remember when Cowboy fought Alex Hernandez, and Alex Hernandez was talking mad shit to him, right? And then that's when Cowboy was like, in his feelings, and he went out there. Remember, he was kicking him hard, like in that same position, but he was like whipping kicks to his leg. But you're
Yeah.
right. There's like you could swing yourself around if you really wanted to, and just the
It's
kicks
just
would.
give. Like there's
Yeah.
give. Like not all of that force like you're generating is being transferred into the leg. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, that was Alex Hernandez. That was his career. That was like his career-ending shit talk, man. He was running. He was flapping his gums, brother, and that set him back a couple years. That's wild.
Yeah, it is. It's wild. But yeah. So like, if we could nitpick at the significant strike thing, you know how a lot of people try to point to like, oh, he landed this many significant strikes against this many significant strikes, but some of these significant strikes are not significant enough to
I
be a
don't
significant
know.
strike.
Yeah, but have you seen how like big it changes between like the ones that the UFC show and then like the official recording of the significant strike? Like they're way off
Yeah.
oftentimes. Like they swing real big. So if you're looking at like that initial, that's the thing. Like people move so like fast in this world and move on to things so quick. Like that will be it. Like someone will watch the fight once and then see the stats once and then make their mind up and then stick to that. Like regardless of like how far it goes, and then they'll tweet out like what they say, this is bullshit, robbery, rah, rah, rah. But it's like, did you watch the fight again? Like, did you watch the fight twice? Like, before I come out there and really like criticize someone for a performance, like I have to put some serious time into watching the fight and process it, see like official statistics. Like, that's like mainly why I never come out and say like this was a ripoff. Because for me to come out and say something was a ripoff, it's probably going to take me like a week of acquiring like new knowledge about the different things and probably watch the fight like 4 or 5 times. And by the time I actually make up my mind as to whether something's a robbery or not, no one cares about it anymore. Like everyone's like 3 or 4 days later, and I tweet out that was a robbery. Everyone's like, we've moved on from that. No one cares about that fight anymore. Like,
Yeah, we're worried about Jake Paul, who he's boxing next. Like you're right. You're right. Once you get time to like really digest and study and do your background checks and all that, it's too late. It's too late. Like the time
it's
it
too late.
takes. Everybody's
The
about that
people,
instant reaction.
the people have moved on.
Yeah, no, and there's no consequences for your instant reactions, and your consequences, they could only last for so long, right? It's like people forget that they hate somebody after a while, and then now they're back in the news cycle, doing their thing. So, yeah, it's weird, but the Brazilian man, he's 12-1. It looks like he's a decent guy coming up in the middleweight division. We'll have to keep an eye on him. He got a co-main event slot, so. There must be something going on. Saeed, did you watch the fight? Saeed Nurmagomedov versus his name is Diego, maybe Diego Silva de Andrade. Man, he has a long name.
You got the Portuguese names down. Oh man, cracked it with the Portuguese.
I do. I like Mexican, like Spanish names and like Portuguese names. I could do that. You know what I mean? Silva de Andrade. But anyways, Silva de Andrade. Hey, that dude is a tank, man. Like he is like for bantamweight, he reminds me of like just a way more jacked Davison Figueiredo. Just he's built.
He came, yeah. Oh man, he came like a bat out of hell, right? Like just ran across and tried to put some lactic acid in his muscles and slow him down a bit. Saeed's, I'd say, like one of the better strikers from that camp, or if not the best striker from that camp. Like moves very well on his feet. Has like a combination of that weird, like Russian boxing style, and kind of like that Taekwondo style where they dart in and out and have very good. They're very good at covering range, and he can flick the kicks up. quite high as well. So it was a good move on the part of Andrade to try to put some lactate in him and try to slow him down a bit. It just wasn't. It just wasn't as effective as he kind of thought it was going to be. Even though Saeed is one of the very good strikers out of that camp, he's still. You have to anticipate that he's going to be doing 90% of his time is going to be spent on the wrestling mat and wrestling at that camp. And that's what was able to get him the victory. You know, he was able to recover, not get overwhelmed by that early wrestling onslaught, make his adjustments, and and then kind of reverse that as well with his own takedowns. So, like, another very impressive performance out of that camp.
Yeah, Saeed, man, he's good. He reminds me a lot like just a smaller version of Zabit. You know, just the way he moves and spins and the style he has. I think he's one of those guys. He's going to get to the point where, like, the top guys that are in the rankings are not going to really want to be matched up against him, no matter what. He's just too dangerous in everything. He's very well rounded, right? For being from Dagestan. Usually Dagestan's wrestling heavy, right? But this guy is pretty well rounded.
That's why the Russians fight the Brazilians. That's a very common theme. Russians fight Brazilians until we figure out who's the best out of those ones, and then he moves on to North America.
It's like fucking Street Fighter right there, boy. It's like Street Fighter, bro. Like, you're right. Yeah. So Saeed, man, good performance, like always. I just wonder who's next for him. Who's gonna sign the dotted line against him? Not many guys, I don't think, is gonna raise their hands. But next one, Chase Sherman gets the knockout in the third round. Chase Sherman looked really, really good in this fight. Bandera didn't engage in the grappling at all and kind of played in Chase Sherman's world. And what happens when you play in someone's world? You get knocked.
That's how heavyweights should fight. That to me is a heavyweight fight. That to me is, I tip my hat. Like, these boys come out swinging from the start. Both kind of sitting in the pocket, trying to land their heavy shots, and that was like a high volume fight for a heavyweight contest. You know what I mean? Like, generally you see them starting to lag and starting to look for the wrestling and the takedowns like a bit more, but they didn't. They kept swinging and kept like a very high volume and entertaining, exciting fight for heavyweights. So Chase Sherman, this is his second run in the UFC, and he's looking like he learned from his time. He spent some time away in I think he was in bare knuckle. He went to BKFC for a bit before he got back in the UFC by taking a short notice fight, and he's doing well. He's got another stoppage victory. I think that's his 7th first round knockout. Like, this guy's very impressive. Yeah, I like him.
I think his job was on the line. I think both these guys' jobs was on the line with this fight. But Chase came out there, looked crispy as a fresh dollar bill right on the feet, and just pitter-pattered him up, and then got the finish. Killer instinct, man. He has it. Maybe it's all that bare knuckle boxing, you know, that gives you that little extra killer instinct, don't you think?
Changes you.
It changes your face. For real. Like, it's different after those fights. Iman Zahabi. I probably butchered his name. Firas Zahabi's younger brother, I believe. He goes in there and beats the tough champion from last year, Ricky Tercios. Did you catch that fight?
I was walking through the airport. That's the one I was going through. I was going through immigration, so I spent my whole time watching this card like this.
Yeah, that one.
Charging through the airport, so I missed this one. I was getting grilled by immigration.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Why do I always think, like, if you guys are flying from New Zealand to Australia, they just let you through? It's like, hey, you guys are, very close. That's what I would think.
Not that close.
Yeah, you know not that close, but in my eyes, in my optimistic viewpoints,
like cousins.
You
know what I mean?
Cousins that don't trust each other.
I mean, you can come over, but don't come over all the time. You know what I mean?
You're right. That is a cousin. All
You
right.
can come over, but you can't stay here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. You can't sleep over and shit. Like, come on, chill. Dude, you can't put the toothbrush in the bathroom. Come on.
Oh no, get out of here. Get out of here, brother.
All right,
Take
we'll
your
skip
things
that
with
because
you when you leave.
yeah, we'll skip that because I didn't even like I had it on the screen, but I was just like walking past through and I didn't know what the hell happened. But I did watch this fight, Jamie Mullarkey versus Michael Johnson. This was one of the fire matchups. Man, Jamie Mullarkey gets dropped, comes back and wins the decision. Just
They
take
came
us through
back
that.
and dropped him back in the same round.
Yeah.
Mad. That was a mad fight. Mullarkey took that fight on short notice, yeah?
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not for sure.
Well,
I
not like
think he
short notice, but like maybe a month or something. Like he only announced that like a few weeks ago, so maybe he knew in advance. But I thought that's one heck of a tough matchup for Jamie Mullarkey. Like in my hands, like in my eyes, Michael Johnson is one of the best. Like he's got some of the best boxing in our entire division. Like just the speed of his hands and stuff like that. We've talked about this in the past. And Mullarkey came out there and stood with him and looked impressive. I'd say the difference was just, for me, it was like the variety in which Mullarkey attacked and also like the intensity which he attacks. Like, because I've seen Mullarkey fight live like a couple of times. And he doesn't in any way, shape or form like try to score with his strikes or like try to pit-a-pat with his strikes. Like you hear all of his strikes. Like when he lands a kick, you know he lands a kick. Like it's loud. You know what I mean? Like this guy hits intense, and that's something that I would say, like people at home, like fail to understand. Like it's very difficult to feel that same kind of intensity when you're watching it on the TV compared to a guy that's sitting cage side and judging a fight. Like that is a big difference. When two guys land and you hear one and you feel the intensity of the strike, I feel like that's for me was the difference in this contest.
Yeah, Jamie Mullarkey, he's like I would consider him a brawler. Like straight up one word description, Jamie Mullarkey's a brawler. Like he will go in there and go blow for blow with anybody and man, every fight he's in has been crazy. And this one, yeah, it was great. It was a close fight. A lot of people think that Johnson won that fight. You know what I mean? Even Johnson was pretty disappointed when they called it for Mullarkey. I thought it was just a close. If Michael Johnson won, I don't think I'm going to argue for Jamie Mullarkey. You know what I mean? Like either way, those boys put their souls out there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Really,
no doubt.
really.
That was one heck of a fight, man. That's yeah, like you can't. The winner's the winner, man. Like that's just the way it goes. Like the one guy wins, that decision is never getting overturned. Can cry all you want about it. Can scream to you blue in the face that it should change, but it's not changing, my friend. It is never changing. So all you can do is just appreciate the kind of show that they put on. It's art. Like fight like that is art, man. Like I don't even need to look. Like that's they got fight of the night bonus. That's something I don't need to look at. They had to have got fight of the night bonus.
They have to, right? Like they both
I'm
made
not
weight.
even gonna look. I'm not even gonna look.
Yeah.
They got fight of the night bonus. I'm gonna announce it here first.
Breaking news. Wait, let me see. I'll check. Is that right? Oh, here it is. All right, so Dan is predicting that they have the fight of the night.
Got it.
And
they
of
got
course
it.
they do. Of course they do. You're right. Performance of the night, Fiziev, and then Chase Sherman, Mullarkey and Johnson, fight of the night. A solid picks, man, but I'm waiting for the UFC to go back to that, we're going to give everybody bonuses on the card that finished their fights. When are they going to keep doing that? Come on, let's keep the ball rolling. Let's push that. That's the new name of the podcast. Give everybody bonuses if they win on the show. That's the bonus. Why not? If they can do it once, if they could do it once, why can't they do it twice or three times? You know what I mean? Like Why do they have selected cities? Is there something behind that?
Well, I guess when you pack out an arena and you sell heaps of tickets, you should maybe get a bonus. I feel like that's warranted for mine.
You know, I don't think the UFC's come to fighters and be like, "Yo, you fucking sold out the Apex. That's legendary." Now, you know what I mean? Like, that's not gonna happen, right? Like, you're not getting props for selling out the Apex. But
hey, if you don't sell out the Apex, like get a new job, because you ain't
you getting cut.
You really ain't gonna make a lot of money in this sport.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Oh yeah, like I wanted to talk about this too, you know, going back to Cowboy. And I saw an interview that he did, and he was talking about the Conor fight, right? And he said that, like, when he was in the back before the fight, he didn't want to be there. Like, he didn't want to fight. But he went out there and he fought. And he said because he didn't want to fight, that any like little opportunity, like little window of like to get out of that situation, he took that window when he fought Conor. Man, I thought that was like so. I don't know if it's so big of him to like say that like just in public out loud, but I think that, you know, people should like understand that.
Well,
like try to understand it.
He's like, that's like the constant battle that's like going on with fighters. You know what I mean? Like, there's always like a constant battle going on where like everyone is like a person. Like, people see you like do real tough shit, and you fight back and you bite down and you do like that, but you're not like the whole time, the whole 25 minutes, the whole 15 minutes, the whole 5 minutes, like just thinking like, yeah, I can walk through all of this. Like, get hit with a good shot and you're like, oh shit, I can't feel my legs. Like, there's like a constant battle like going on in your own head. Like, during the fight, you get clipped with a shot and you're just like, oh man, my legs don't work anymore. All right, stay calm. Like, this will come back. Like, it's like a fight is like a massive yo-yo. Like, I've won a lot of fights and got like a very impressive knockouts, and the same thing like been happening. Like, the guy kicks me in the guts or something like that, and I'm like, oh shit, I can't breathe. Fuck, I'm gonna have to really do something in the next 10 seconds or this fight's it. And then you get a knockout. Like, it's not I've got knockouts thinking I was about to lose a fight. Like, it's like a wicked sport, and it's just like a crazy yo-yo of emotions. You know what I mean? And I feel like you need that. I feel like you need that, because anything that doesn't bend, like, will break, right? And you see that with like the undefeated guy, who's, let's say, like, imagine being 20-0 and then you get to like your first loss and you get like knocked out in a title fight or something like that. You've had like an unwavering confidence your entire time, and then snap. Like, that's very hard to pick yourself back up from. You know what I mean? Like, if you're just human and you appreciate that and you understand that, you can bounce back. You can be like, I'm hurt, but all right, if I stay calm, I'm going to be able to get out of the situation, or I'm going to need to pick up the pace a little bit now, because he's starting to put the heat on. So yeah, it's cool that he's like come out and been honest like that. You're going to get like so much criticism from like your average Joe that's just like, oh, a UFC fighter should be like, you're not going to be a champion like that. Like, there's no way you're going to be world champion. Like, a UFC fighter is supposed to be like a comic book superhero. Like, one thing I've learned, like, I'm a pretty like aggressive dude just naturally, like in day to day. Like, I'm always, if you walk, like, chances are like 99% of the time, if you walk up to me in the street and you're like, let's have a fight, I'm going to be like, yeah, all right, let's have a fight. You know what I mean? But there's so many guys that are not like that. There's a lot of guys that are like real timid outside of the cage and stuff like that. And you think, this guy's like a bit of a wimp. And you get in there and you're like, anyone can be tough for however long your fight is. You know what I mean? Like, the wimpiest people I've seen, like, you can be tough for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Like, that's a very short period of time that someone has to kind of transform into a character. You don't need to be tough 100% of the time. That's just not needed in the sport. You only fight 2-3 times a year for 15 minutes at a time. You don't have to be tough 365 days a year. You don't even have to be tough for 45 minutes of the year. You know what I mean? So it's a wild ride. What's he saying?
He's saying, I'll scrap you in the park and save car park. Pack and save car park.
Bet you won't. Bet you won't.
Oh shit. Yeah. It's I don't know. I like hearing those things. It's not like I like hearing it because like it hurts somebody or like it just reveals like the mental battle of like, because look at that moment. You know what I mean? Everybody wants the Conor fight, right? Everybody wants it. Everybody it's thirsty for it, right? But then like you get it, and it's the moment to kind of get, you know, to turn it on. And if you're not able to turn it on, it's like, you know, because there's extra pressure, of course, you know, the extra media.
Oh, way bigger,
attention.
way bigger.
Yeah,
That's the biggest fight. That's the biggest fight you can possibly get. Like you have to take that into account. You definitely have to be ready for that. But it's like, man, anyone, ask anyone, like if they ever had a bad day at work. You know what I mean? Like everyone now and then has a bad day at work. Like, but if you're a builder, you know what I mean? You might like install something the wrong way, and it's gonna take you a day.
I was gonna say collapse a building. You know what I mean? That could be a worst case scenario for a building, right?
Well, you're gonna have to really do some damage there. You know what I mean? Like if you're like an insurance guy, you might, you know, spill some ink on your shirt. Like that's the worst day you're gonna have. Like that's just what a bad day at work looks like for a UFC fighter. Like it's just you show up. Like not every day is gonna be your day. Like what can you do about it? You're gonna if you're a builder, you're gonna stop showing up to work because you fucked up last week. Like you can't. You need to. You need to. You know what I mean? You can't become a plumber. You suck. Like you spent 20 years becoming a builder. How are you gonna just turn around and become a plumber?
Because you're right. Just because of one bad day, you know, one bad day, you can't just go to next. Like, you can't call them next day and be like, I quit and I'm gonna.
It is what it is. It's part of being human.
I'm like, I quit my job. I'm going to the pack and save. I'm looking for Dan Hooker in the parking lot. What's going on?
Hey, you don't get no money for that, Baba. You just get ass whipping.
Yeah, you're gonna ass whipping. It's some cool CCTV footage, probably that you could show at your funeral. Let's see what else happened on this card. What do you think about Jamie Malarkey? You know, he's in the lightweight division. He just got a win over Michael Johnson. I think that's a huge win for him. Who would you like to see him fight? Because you know the division pretty well. Like, there's a lot of exciting matchups.
There really is. I would, even a guy, Jamie Malarkey, like even a guy like Jim Miller. I'd like to see him against a guy like Jim Miller. I love Jim Miller to death. Got like super respect for him. Like he's racking up the thing. I'd like to see him just continue to fight guys at that kind of level, like the cowboy level, Jamie Malarkey, like that kind of stuff. I think it's like he's been back and forth. I don't even know what he wants to do. It's very hard to like call what he wants to do. But you know, you definitely don't want to see like Jim get chucked in there with like one of those killers. You know what I mean? Like up there with like an arm, or like getting arm on or something like that, chucking him in with one of those younger guys coming up. So for me, yeah, like I'd like to see Malarkey for like Clay Guida or Jim Miller or something like that, like a big name veteran. Like that's he just took out a big name veteran. It's like for me, like it's more interesting fighting these guys. He's back. Like it's more interesting for me, like as a fighter, to fight people that are like recognized names. That's like a big part of it for me. Do you know like how hard it is to explain to people like who you're fighting? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm gonna fight this guy, and they're like, oh, what was his name again? And you're like, oh, Migla. Like you don't. Oh, what? How long? What's he good at? You know what I mean? Like it's hard to explain. Like at least if you just like, I'm fighting Clay Guida, people are like, oh, you're fighting Clay Guida. Yeah. I know who that is. That's a big name. You know what I mean? So for me as a fighter, I'm more interested in taking out guys with like established names, with big names. Like there's more at stake. There's just more intrigue in it for you as a fighter.
For some reason, I could see Jamie Malarkey becoming like the Australian version of Jim Miller. I don't know why. It's just how he's starting off and how he fights and like just insane, just action every time he gets out there.
He's getting better. Like he's like kind of how I came into the UFC. Like I'm sure that when I come into the UFC, like people think like you have like win loss. Like you're chopping and changing between like wins and losses. People are like, oh, this guy's not gonna be around for too long. But you can't kill a weed, brother. You can't kill a weed. Like it keeps growing back. You know what I mean? They're like, you're gonna lose your job this fight. Then you win that fight. And then you got your job back again.
Yeah. I don't know. Where does Michael Johnson go? That's another question, right? Like he could fight a Jim Miller. He could fight a Clay Guida, right?
That's true, right? Like Clay's coming off a loss, isn't he? And Jim's coming off a win. I'd like to see Malarkey versus Jim and maybe Clay versus Michael Johnson. Like another big name guys. You know what I mean?
There you go. Fuck. It's
Give me
a crazy division right there.
Matchmaking job. My show.
Beat down promotions. Beat down promotions.
Finally, eat down promotions.
Eat down promotions.
You don't even have to make weight.
No. You don't even have to show up to the weigh-ins because there's.
You don't even. You just have to come for the picture, please.
Exactly. That's another thing I always wondered. I don't know if I'm guaranteeing this happens, but I don't know. I think there's like sometimes fuckery going on in some of these countries where they have shows, but they're not really weighing in, and they're not really fighting at the weight that they say that they're fighting at. Like are you talking about one championship? Or? No, I'm talking about like regional shows around the world, like small shows. Like shows that they just put together in like a month or 2 weeks or something like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%. Like shady shit, bro. Like it's like the shadiest sport there is. Like it's not. There's like very few like regulatory bodies like across the world. Like they changed depending on state in America, depending on country. Like most countries out there like don't even have a regulatory body. Like it's a very difficult sport to control, you know what I mean? But it's like on the same hand, do you want the government involved in regulating your country's cage fighting? Like they're gonna just bring in like a bunch of pencil pushers that don't have any experience in the sport, and they're gonna make up a bunch of stupid rules. That's why we have the 12-6. That's why we have these dumb rules. Because these kind of people were a part of the sport at some stage. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one for sure. Like it just comes down to like people understand. There's like people's reputations go on the line, and they're like held accountable for their reputation. Like people know what the shady promotions are. You know what I mean? And people know what the clean promotions are, and what the bigger promotions are, and what the safer promotions are to fight on the region. It's like for young fighters, they just need to find themselves a coach that they can trust, that's highly qualified, and that's gonna take care of them. That's like fighters like me. I was lucky enough that I was like looked after by like Carl Weber and my coaches on like quite well. You know what I mean? Like they knew that I was like some stupid young kid that would just fight anyone, and they at least like pointed me in the right direction and pulled the trigger on like the right people at the right time. But I look around and I see like people like kids like me, like people that will go out there and fight absolutely anyone. Just they are more abused in the sport over anyone. You know what I mean? Like people just, this guy will fight this guy on a week's notice. Oh, this guy's had 10 more fights in him. You know what I mean? So they rack up like a lot of losses, get disheartened, and don't really go anywhere because they kind of get taken the piss out of by promoters and coaches and the such, like just kind of looking to make a quick buck off of them. Get you a good coach.
Speaking of one championship, Ev Ting, I haven't heard. Have you Have you spoken with him recently, or have you heard anything from him? I haven't heard anything from him, man. He hasn't fought for so long.
I haven't spoken to him.
Okay.
I've
Just
spoken
wondering.
to people. I've spoken to people that have seen him.
Okay.
He is still moving his way around. I just
Mhm.
don't. Yeah, I don't think he's like training that much anymore, and I don't think. I don't know. It's hard for me to make that call unless it comes out of his mouth as a whether he
Exactly.
wants to fight again. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He might
Exactly.
still want to get back in there
Yeah.
and put back up there. Yeah, it's just it's hard like getting stuck to like another thing. Like he's again like that, like a tough young kid. Like you get stuck
Mm.
into like a long contract, which you think is like a good opportunity at the time, and you get stuck into like a long contract for that's not that much money. You know what I mean? Or these guys are holding to a contract that is not like a livable wage, and you're gonna have to work as well. And it's not like a UFC contract or one of the bigger contracts floating around out there in the world.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just wondering with Ev, you know what I mean? Like Ev, he's one of the guys, man, that like kind of did some pioneering for like the Australian, New Zealand for one championship, right? He went out there representing them, back in the early
Yeah,
days.
I remember going out there and cornering him in Malaysia
Hmm.
and like Singapore and stuff like that. Like, yeah, and he would fight in like the main event of those shows and stuff like that, and sold out arenas and or packed arenas in Malaysia and Singapore. Like the ONE FC in those kind of places is absolutely enormous. Like it's huge. Like I was standing out there, like Ev won a fight. I think it was like main event in Malaysia, sold out arena, and he's just getting like absolutely swamped. And he like pointed at me at some stage where like at the after um, press conference or something like that, and he's like, "Oh, there's a like UFC fighter, Dan Hooker over there," and they all look at him and they say, "What's the UFC?" Like they had no idea, like let alone who I was. Like you had to explain to them what the UFC was. So it's like just the yeah, like you can see the kind of pull that ONE FC has in those are like its strongholds
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah,
KL and Singapore is like ONE FC strongholds um, as well.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Let's move on to next week, man. There's a pretty banging ass main event, featherweight division, Ortega, Rodriguez. Um, Before we get into like what hangs in the balance with this fight, like I just wanted to give you free reign to just talk about the matchup and the stylistic aspects.
Yeah, obviously, like Ortega's got nice, clean boxing, pretty decent footwork. I'd say just Yair is just a more versatile striker as well. And for mine, Yair has spent a lot of time wrestling with obviously Izzy style wrestling. He spent years and years working on his craft and his takedown defense as well. So I don't feel like Ortega will have the like the wrestling chops to drag Yair to the ground as well. He's obviously got that like chance of submission as well, similar to that in the Volko fight. You know what I mean? But for mine, I just think the striking of Yair will just be too much. Just the versatility in the striking will be a little too much for Ortega. I feel like if Ortega wants to um, get the jump on Yair, he really needs to push the pace because obviously Yair's style, like he covers like a lot of distance with his strikes, throws a lot of like spinning attacks, jumping attacks, and stuff like that. It's very high energy. It's very hard to keep that output going for 25 minutes. So I feel like if Ortega is going to get the job done, he's going to need to start pressuring Yair and pressuring him early.
With Ortega, right? When he came back from that long layoff and cut his hair and fought the Korean Zombie, he came out with a new different style, 2.0, so to say. And then for 25 minutes, he showed a lot of like his new way of striking. And then he fought Volk in the second one, pretty much gave another 20 minutes or so of like how he has evolved as a striker. Do you feel like those two fights, like you can really study those and kind of figure out like Yair will be able to figure out like exactly what he can do against Ortega, or do you feel like Ortega will come out with something new and evolve?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. Like you can go back and look at Ortega's career. Like he hasn't made like huge adjustments or adaptations in his kind of style or in his game. Like he's not. He's that's why I say like the versatility of Yaya. I know he throws like a lot of flashy kicks and like rolling stuff, but that's not what I'm saying when I say like versatile. I say versatility for Yair is like he can fight going forwards, he can fight moving backwards, he can fight orthodox, he can fight southpaw, he can be a kicker, he can look to box, like he can he's versatile of so many different aspects of mixed martial arts. So he's a lot more unpredictable. Like he can chop and change and put like a game plan together around Brian Ortega, whereas Brian Ortega's been pretty consistent. He's obviously had some very impressive performances against Korean Zombie and the likes and stuff like that. But he didn't do anything we hadn't really seen before. He's just very good at what he does. And maybe Korean Zombie wasn't as versatile enough to adjust and move away from those. But Yair, on the other hand, I feel like he is. I feel like he is versatile enough to chop and change and pick the right tools, and he's got the right coaching staff around him to make the right adjustments and bring the right weapons to the table.
Do you think we'll see the difference in the striking immediately? Like in the first round, we'll start to see like, okay, Yair is a couple notches above Ortega in the striking department, or is it going to take some time to understand the difference?
Yeah, that'll be different. I'm just interested to see how he approaches it, how Yair comes out and really approaches it. Whether he takes some time to find his range, or whether he, I feel like it comes down to Ortega. Like I was saying, I feel like he needs to pressure and he needs to pressure early, and that will dictate what Yair does. Obviously, if Ortega comes forward and starts putting the pressure on straight from the first round, then obviously Yair needs to set some pretty heavy kicks up and needs to stop that forward pressure at some stage. Needs to hit his leg low, needs to distract him with the boxing and land some of those bigger kicks to the forearms and to the body and to the legs, just to slow that pressure of Ortega down and give him a reason to back off. But if Ortega, does what he usually does, like starts out loud on his feet, like bouncing, fighting behind his jab, then I feel like Yair can kind of sit back and spend a little more time getting his timing down. So it's and for mine, it's up to how Ortega. But I'm saying like Ortega's what he can bring to the table is just a bit more limited than what Yair brings to the table, and his adjustments. Like I'm saying, either Ortega, does what he usually does or puts a bit more pressure on. It's not the same as Yair. Like Yair could do. He has a whole a whole hat full of tricks.
Do you think the title shot, the next title shot, right? The next guy that fights Volkanovski for the title could be in this matchup? Do you think if Yair wins, like he could jump over Emmett? Do you think that would be something that could happen possibly?
Well, if you hear what happened to Emmett, I read an article what happened to Emmett when he went and watched the UFC and they chuck him in the back corner with 87 rows back and he could barely even see the thing. You know what I mean? Like he got, the UFC's not treating him like the next contender. You know what I mean? Like they had Alex Pereira for Israel. Yeah. They had him cage side, right? And they had a camera on him during the fight with Israel Adesanya. Like that fight was already set before they both left the arena. You know what I mean? Volkanovski fought as well. Volkanovski's most likely next fight is Emmett. You know what I mean? Did we see Emmett during that fight? Did we see a snapshot of him? Did we see him in the crowd? Did we get a second glimpse? It's like that Pereira fight is obviously being pushed by the UFC and that is taken to the bank. You know what I mean? But you can't say the same for Emmett. You can't say that hands down, that fight needs to be taken to the bank. I feel like with an impressive performance here from Yair, especially, I feel like he'd be able to steal that title shot.
Yeah, it looks like that, right?
Just
like
a nice an impressive finish and a strong call out, and that's his fight. That's his fight.
Locked in.
He gets the next title fight.
I feel bad for Emmett, man. He's earned it. I think he's earned it, right? But just It just seems like the promotion, when the organization is not backing you to the fullest and like waiting on certain matchups to play out, then it's hard. It's likely not. But if Ortega wins, what does that do for Emmett? That helps Emmett's argument, right? His position.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely whether they rush through, another fight, you know what I mean? Whether like Volker's obviously, I don't think he can train for the next 12 weeks. Like he's out of training for the next 12 weeks. So that's a long time. You know what I mean? Like he's out 3 months before he can train. Like he's 5 months off fighting again. It's like a possibility that one of these guys win. Like let's say Ortega wins, that they make Ortega and Emmett fight for a title shot. Like I can see that. I just in the fashion in which Volkanovski beat Ortega, like I know he had those close submissions, but that was a very dominant performance from Alex. Like he landed a lot of strikes, and that was a pretty decisive. Well, that was as decisive a victory as you're possibly capable of. So I don't feel like Ortega's like one fight away from a title, or potentially even 2 fights away from a title. I feel like it's a race between Yair and Emma.
It is. It's a 2-headed race, and we'll see what happens, man. A Legend FC alumni, the Leech, is fighting as well next week against Muslim Sakalayev. It's not Sakalayev. It's Salikov.
Sakalayev.
Yeah, I don't even know who that is, but Salikov. This is a crazy fight. This is a great fight. You know what I mean? Did you ever have any interactions with the Leech, like back in the day?
Yeah, for sure. Like bumped into him a bunch. We fought on a few of the same cards. He obviously didn't speak a lick of English and only spoke Chinese, so the interactions were very limited. I remember sitting in sat in the sauna with him a couple of times. I think he was there on my first cut to featherweight when I was going absolutely delusional. Yeah. So that's one. I think because
delusional.
Absolutely delusional. I lost it.
Explain that. Let's hold that. Let's explain the delusional. I want to know what level of delusional that you went to.
You've never been that delusional. I don't want to say how much weight I cut, because there's obviously like dumb young kids watching this and be like, "Oh, you can cut that much weight." Like, no, you can't cut that much weight. You almost kill yourself. Like, it's a terrible idea. But it was a lot. You know what I mean? It was to the point where I was in the sauna. I actually ran out of the sauna, like pushed past my teammate who was helping me cut. I pushed past him. I said, "Get out of my way." And I ran and dove into a spa bath, like a hot spa bath. And it felt to me like cold water. I was at that level of overheating myself. This is like 2000. This is like 2000, 2011, 2012. Wow,
I think those days are pretty much over with. So much education, especially just on YouTube.
Yeah, but we say that, and then my guy's opponent, I just fly to Australia.
That's right.
And the guy cuts too much weight and has to pull out with kidney failure. Like how it's obviously not sorted. You know what I mean? Because it's still the information is readily available, and people are still making huge mistakes about it.
I'm surprised. Okay, I might be like sadistic for saying this, but I'm surprised. Like how they have the ice bucket challenge. You know how they had all of those? Like they would have these weird like TikTok challenges. I'm surprised they don't have the weight cut challenge. Like, yo, I cut 50 pounds in. I'm surprised that hasn't become a thing yet. You know what I mean? Because people are crazy.
Young fighters are that dumb though. Like they'll actually be like, "Oh, he did it. It must be all right." You know what I mean? Like he's not going to do any kind of research to it. Nah, you can't. I know. I don't tell any of my, like, people think like fighters from my gym cut a lot of weight. My boys don't cut any weight. I have them fight, like, especially at the amateur level, they fight kind of like maybe a kilo or two off what they walk around at. Like, there's no big weight cuts like that. That comes at like the highest echelon of the sport for now. Like, hand on my heart, like at the end of the day, for like a young amateur, like doing that kind of stuff to your body is really just impacting like your longevity going forward. Like you might get like a short-term rewards for a couple of fights, but in the long run, it's just going to turn like your hormones to shit, turn your body to shit, and just be like a terrible time altogether. So like my amateur guys, my kickboxers and stuff, they don't cut weight. I don't tell them how to cut weight. I don't give them any kind of advice on cutting weight. You speak to Geordie and you figure it out for yourself.
Yes,
Not
Jordy,
encouraged.
the fight dietitian. Go hit him up. Go get you a diet
Not
plan.
encouraged.
Go get your diet right. Go get your food right. Marcus Mustard has a serious question for you, Dan. So there is 0 water drinking while cutting weight. Is this true or not?
No, there's a lot of water drinking involved in cutting weight. You go from one extreme to the other, but your time like not drinking water is like incredibly limited. It's like I wouldn't even say like 24 hours before like 24 hours before the weigh-in. Like I'll just go to like sipping water as I need it. But before that, we're like drinking a lot of water, drinking 6 liters, drinking 8 liters of water per day. Yeah, water load, then stop. Oh, Todd Martell's watched a few UFC countdowns in his time. He's seen a few embedded videos.
Yeah, that's how I get my education. UFC countdowns and embedded videos. That's all I know. Hey, so that's all you need to know. But going back to the leech, your interactions with the leech. Hey, I love the leech. He looks mean as shit, but he has a good like upbeat kind of person. I don't know how he was in the sauna, because people become different people in the sauna, but normally he's pretty energetic. But yeah, the leech.
Yeah,
Man,
like I've definitely run into him like since he's speaking a bit more English and like more recently. It's a bit yeah. They're much happier interactions than just like us just staring oddly at each other and then just going, "What? Hello? Hello?" and then yelling at me in Chinese and me being like, "What the?" Our interactions have definitely skyrocketed.
Those are the best. Those are the best interactions where you don't even know what you're talking about to each other, and you came out with less than you went in. And another featherweight fight: Shane Burgos versus Charles Jourdain, or is it Jourdain? That's a pretty solid matchup, right? That's a fire
That's a
matchup
good
right
one.
there.
That's a good one. I like that one. I like Shane Burgos. Oh yeah, and that Jourdain's on a bit of a run, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He had that one moment where, at the end of the round, he did that 300 like push kick to the chest.
Oh, the Sparta.
Yeah, he did that at the end of that was pretty dope. Yeah, what do you think of this matchup, man? Both guys strikers, of course, clearly. Who's the more technical striker, do you think?
Yeah, there's like a big step up in competition to Shane Burgos. Like Shane Burgos is still ranked, if I'm not mistaken, and this is his chance to get into the rankings. So I really like Shane Burgos. I feel like he has a lot of tools. I feel like he's caught some tough breaks and had some tough fights, but that's against like the real upper echelon of the division. Has been the guys that have been able to really get after him and get him out of there. It's guys like Edson Barboza, guys like Calvin Kattar. Like you can't compare that to guys that are outside of the top 15. So Shane Burgos, huge step up in competition, and if he can get past them, he's really proved the point. But for mine, he's just super technical, very experienced, and definitely one of the toughest in the division.
Lauren Murphy, she's coming off the loss to Shevchenko in her last fight, right? And she's returning against Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate's dropping down to 125. I'm thinking
this fight was supposed to happen. This fight was supposed to happen on the Israel Volk pay-per-view.
Exactly.
Correct?
So one of them got sick, I believe. I think Murphy got sick and had to pull out. With Miesha Tate, it seems like they're trying to line up Miesha Tate for the title fight, because why would they be giving her first fight, dropping down a weight class, the girl that just fought for the title? I only see a setup because there's really no one for Valentina to fight right now, and Miesha Tate's a big name, a former champ, right? They could promote that. Do you see that? That's the position
Oh
that they're putting
yeah,
Miesha
for
Tate in?
sure, for sure. Miesha Tate is like one of the biggest names. Like she's like she's been, just a huge marketable star since women have been fighting in the UFC. She's always put herself in title contention and plays the sport incredibly well. So yeah, hands down, that's a title eliminator fight for the next one. Miesha Tate's making the right moves, but on the same hand, like Lauren Murphy's tough as absolute nails, and she's in for one heck of a war. That's not an easy drop down in division or an easy skate towards a title shot whatsoever.
In a way that they kind of fight similar. They kind of fight similar in many ways. You know what I mean? Maybe Tate is a little bit more submission savvy, but they kind of fight similar. And I think this is a perfect fight or a perfect matchup for Miesha Tate. You know what I mean? If she fought somebody else, it wouldn't be so good. You know what I mean? Especially her dropping 10 extra pounds. But I think this one is going to be a good one. If she wins, she's going to get the title fight. Like all she has to do is win and call Valentina out. And Valentina, I think, said that
she's already been saying some things.
Yeah.
So it's already caught wind. It's already she knows exactly what she's doing.
Exactly. Get on the Googles if you don't know. Get on the Googles, right? And I like this fight. I like that, you know, Miesha Tate is lining herself up for another title shot, and it's gonna be fun, man. I in a way, I secretly kind of root for her because I want to see that fight, Valentina versus Miesha Tate. Because when you watch Valentina's last fight, you know, she exposed some holes, you know what I mean, that Valentina has had, you know, not being able to escape the back, you know, stuff like that. So Miesha Tate, she's known for her grappling. It'll be fun. What else we got next week? Let's see. Let me see. We got Dustin Jacoby. Do you know Dustin Jacoby?
I sure do. He left the UFC and went to Glory and did quite well in Glory, fighting in Glory kickboxing for a very long time. Came back to the UFC and he's had some very good results since coming back. So it's he's a great one to watch. Always puts on a firework fight.
He does. He's undefeated in his return, his second run in the UFC, and then he's fighting. He's fighting he is money, man. He's been doing really well. A cool dude interviewed him a bunch of times, and he's facing like the young gunner of that light heavyweight division. He's also undefeated in the UFC. Taun Jung. He's the Korean fighter. And not many Korean fighters that are fighting at like light heavyweight. He's the only one ever from Korea. Wow. And, you know, not many Japanese light heavyweights, and, you know, Asians are not light heavyweight built really. You know, we might go to China and see a bunch there, but you know, they got a bigger pick of the litter, so to say, right?
It's a bigger pool. That's a very large pool of people to pick from.
Exactly. You know, it's not Where's Waldo, you know, when you go over there. Like Taun Jung, man, I think it's a huge test. I think a lot of people think because Jacoby is more experienced that he has a lot of advantage. But when I interviewed Jacoby, he told me like, dude, this is my biggest test. I think this dude is really good. And I'm taking him seriously. And in past interviews, he said directly to me, like, I'm going to knock this dude out. And he's won every fight. He hasn't knocked everybody out. But this one, he's actually really said, like, you know, I'm going to take this one really serious. Yeah, it's a tough matchup. And it's cool that fighters can, you know, like admit that from time to time. You know what I mean? You don't always have to say like, oh, this dude is trash. Like you can, and it's fun. Yes. But then when you go get your ass beat, then it's not so fun because you become a meme. You know, a lot of times it happens. We've been on many shows.
Risk versus reward.
Exactly. Risk versus the terrible pitfalls of, you know, the risk is the terrible pitfalls. The rewards are fucking phenomenal. But yeah, this fight is good. I think when this show's over, a lot of people will talking about this fight, no matter what the result is. It's a great one. Herbert Burns comes back, the younger brother of Gilbert Burns, who has been out.
He was fighting he was fighting in one FC for a while before he moved over to the UFC with his brother.
He's from the F Ting days, right? Like when he was fighting back then. And Herbert Burns, a little older guy, but very, very skilled. He could finish on the feet. He could finish on the ground. He was supposed to fight one of the twins. Do you know the twins?
I sure do.
Oh, you do.
Are they not fighting now? Are they not fighting now?
He's not. Yeah, he had to pull out because of an arm injury, and then a guy, Bill Algeo, he was fighting somebody, and his opponent pulled out. I think it was Billy Q. Now they're just going to put them together, and they're going to fight each other on the same card, which works out, right?
Makes sense.
When you're coming back,
the twins have been trying to do their UFC debut for about 10 years, mate.
Yeah, the twins are the twins, man. They do their thing, you know. Like, to be honest, there's like millions of twins in the world, but in the MMA world, if I say the twins, like people know. Like, if I say the twins to you, like we've never talked about the twins, you and me. This is the first time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And then you know exactly what I'm talking about, which is that blows my mind a little bit. Like how people know, like, yeah, the twins. You know, here
they are polarizing.
Yeah. So hopefully the twins are doing well, and he fights soon. But this time he's not gonna fight. Herbert Burns is coming back. Yeah, it's gonna be it's a good card, man. But
wicked. Look forward to it.
Wicked card. We'll see you guys on the other side. Dan, appreciate you, man. Everybody, leave a comment if you don't like what we say, because I love to read them. So so I'll see you guys next week. Appreciate you guys for joining us.